All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're breaking down a completely fascinating 100-day isolation challenge that really puts human endurance, the value of comfort, and ultimate trust to the test. Seriously, what happens when you completely take away the outside world, strip away natural light and time, and put human willpower in a pressure cooker? Well, we're going to find out.
Picture this for a second. You are locked in a bright, stark white cube with a complete stranger for over 3 months. You can't leave. You literally have zero connection to the outside world. But waiting for you at the end of those 100 days is a massive pile of cash. $500,000 to be exact. It sounds like a total dream scenario to make some quick, life-changing money, right? But the psychological toll this experiment takes, it is staggering. So here's the deal with the rules. On the surface, they seem super simple. We've got 2 subjects, Susie and Bailey, who had literally never laid eyes on each other before those doors locked. They get unlimited basic food, a bed, and a private bathroom. But there is a massive catch. If just one person decides they've had enough and taps out, they both lose the whole shebang. Their fates are 100% tied together. And as we'll see, complete isolation warps your mind in ways you wouldn't believe. To really understand the toll this took, we're going to break this psychological roller coaster down into 6 distinct phases: the isolation experiment, surviving extreme boredom, the cost of temptation, the $50,000 Tesla regret, the paradox of comfort, and finally, the ultimate trust test. Let's get into it. Phase 1, the isolation experiment, or the shock of a timeless white box. Humans are incredibly dependent on our circadian rhythms, right? We need the sun. But inside this white chamber, the lights were always blazing bright. So what actually happens when you lose all sense of time? Well, on just night 1, Susie and Bailey accidentally slept for only 2 hours. They woke up feeling totally rested and started cooking a second-day dinner of canned chicken at exactly 2:37 in the morning. They completely wrecked their internal clocks right out of the gate. They were literally walking around shielding their eyes just to get a tiny bit of relief from that relentless brightness. Moving into Phase 2, surviving extreme boredom and the desperate search for entertainment. It is wild what the human brain will invent when it is completely deprived of stimulation. By day 4, they're so bored they are tearing up their personal journals just to craft a makeshift deck of cards. By day 5, they're pulling psychological tricks, like creating a fake sign-in sheet to try and manipulate the camera crew into accidentally writing down the current date. And by day 7, Bailey is literally whipping pieces of raw pork across the room just to watch them hit the wall. They were absolutely starving for any kind of mental input. Phase 3, the cost of temptation, monetizing relief in isolation. See, the experiment didn't just leave them to rot. It actively threw expensive temptations at them every 10 days to chip away at that prize money. And early on, they stayed incredibly disciplined. 50 grand for a private chef? Nope. Comfortable smart bed so they could finally turn off those agonizing lights for another 50 grand? Rejected again. It wasn't until day 30 that they kind of caved, spending $20,000 on coffee and some Harry Potter books. But by day 50, the isolation hit them so hard that they happily handed over $20,000 just for a quick 10-minute visit with their families through a glass wall. But they were also brilliantly resourceful. On day 40, they were offered a TV. The catch? Every single movie cost $10,000 to watch. So they rejected the movies. But Bailey noticed he still had the TV monitor itself. This guy takes a knife, strips a random wire off the wall, and jams it straight into the TV's antenna port. An absolute genius. He hacked the system and managed to pick up 7 free digital channels over the air. They spent the next 6 days glued to car racing, just soaking in that feeling of a normal life without spending a single dime. All right, Phase 4, the $50,000 Tesla regret and the psychological blow of a missed opportunity. Let's see how playing it safe backfires horribly. On day 60, they were offered a giant mystery box for 50 grand. Because they were absolutely terrified of throwing away their hard-earned money on a bad deal, they agonized over it, played it safe, and rejected the box. But, oh man, when the host opened it to show them what they missed, it was their $50,000 right back in cash, plus the keys to 2 brand new Teslas completely for free. They protected their money, sure, but they missed out on a massive, life-changing bonus. The realization that they just let their dream cars slip through their fingers totally crushed Susie's morale. She was physically sick over it, saying she literally wouldn't be able to sleep. For over a week, the psychological weight of this massive what-if hung over the entire room. It totally shifted the dynamic of how they viewed the game from that point on. Which brings us to phase 5, the paradox of comfort, and how luxury actually created enemies. You'd think getting everything you want would make surviving a tiny room easier, right? Well, driven by the absolute trauma of those missed Teslas, Day 70 brings a blind auction for literally everything they had ever rejected. Terrified of missing out again, they panic bid over $100,000 of their prize money. They won the lot, but the kicker? The hidden minimum price to win all that luxury was just $69. Yeah, ouch. They massively overpaid, but suddenly their bleak white room was a fully furnished luxury suite. But strangely, introducing all this comfort actually highlighted their conflicting personalities. Without the shared struggle of surviving that bare white room together, they started driving each other completely crazy. Bailey, the ultimate extrovert, is suddenly throwing 3 a.m. raves and using up all the hot water. Susie, the introvert, just wanted to read and actually hid the Monopoly dice so Bailey would stop asking her to play. Having luxury didn't bring them closer at all. It just made them incredibly annoyed with each other.
Which brings us to our final phase, number 6, the ultimate trust test. 100 days for nothing? They've survived the extreme boredom, the deep regret, and quite frankly, each other. But on the very last day, they are blindfolded, unable to communicate, and forced to play a classic, high-stakes game of split or steal. You know the drill. If you trust your partner and hit split, you share the cash. But if you hit steal while they split, you walk away with everything, and they get absolutely zero. And if you both get greedy and hit steal, all that suffering was for nothing, because you both leave empty-handed. Put yourself in their shoes for a second. Think about the psychology here. Could you trust someone who drained all your hot water and annoyed you for 3 solid months not to steal a life-changing amount of money out from under you? They had roughly $360,000 left in the pot. Sitting there in complete silence for those final 30 seconds, the temptation to hit steal just to protect yourself must have been completely overwhelming. But in an incredible display of solidarity, they both chose split. They recognized the shared trauma of those 100 days. They realized that you really can't put a price on overcoming those dark, isolated times together. They both hit the button, the room lit up green, and they walked out of those doors rich and, remarkably, as friends. It really makes you rethink the true price of comfort, the power of human resilience, and the sheer depths of human connection, doesn't it? If you were locked away, totally stripped of time, and flooded with expensive temptations, what kind of person would you become by day 100? Would you break, or would you find a way to survive and split the prize? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope it gave you something really fascinating to think about today.